What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode. In this episode, I'm going to talk to you guys about 5 different habits that you need to have as a brand new rider, or you may be somebody who's been riding for a long time and you knew these lessons, but along the way you developed some bad habits and you completely forgot about them. The first habit that we're going to be talking about is the front and the rear brakes. I've been noticing that a lot of people have been wondering which brake is appropriate to use. Is it the rear brake? Is it the front brakes? Is it both? People are really confused, even though I've made several videos about them. But I think talking about it one more time in this type of video makes a lot of sense and probably drills it home. So the important question is, you have your front brake, you have your rear brake, and then you also have your engine brake, which is something that you don't have control over, or you might. That's going to be an advanced course that I plan to teach in the future on how to use your engine braking to slow yourself down. But for now, the front and the rear brake, which one should you be using the most, and when does it call for? Right now, it calls for the front brakes. Why, you might be asking? 40 miles an hour, that's one good reason. Reason number 2, a motorcycle like this has dual caliper, dual piston brakes on both sides. So that means 80% of the stopping power is in the front of the motorcycle. Meanwhile, in the rear, you have a single piston, single caliper brake that only allows you to use 20% of your braking power. And I would probably say it's less than 20%, to be honest with you, because when I'm really on it, it doesn't really slow me down as much as I want it to. Now, as you noticed, I was at a traffic light. At 40 miles an hour, if the light's going to turn and I'm going to come into a slow stop, I'm going to use my front brakes to slow myself down up to maybe 10 miles an hour. After 10 miles an hour, to make it a lot smoother for myself, I will use my rear brakes to slow myself down. Alright, so here's a stop sign. 50 miles an hour, front brakes, first gear, slowing myself down. This would not have been possible if I used my rear brakes. Now, if you say that your bike is possible to do that, which a lot of people have been doing, because I used to ride with a guy who rode a Gixxer 600. There was this one time we were going like 80 miles an hour, and I stopped abruptly, and he followed, except he stopped about 12 feet in front of me because his motorcycle skid that far. And when we pulled over, I was kind of baffled, wondering what the heck he was doing. And he said he uses primarily his rear brake to slow down. And so most people, they don't have ABS in the front or in the rear. And that makes it especially dangerous if you're going to use the rear brake, because you're going to fishtail, and as a result of the fishtail, you can either high side or low side. Now, if your motorcycle does one of these snakes, the rear end can come out and you can get thrown off your bike into a high side, into the opposite direction with a car coming this way, and that makes it very dangerous. So if you have a habit right now of using primarily your rear brake, please don't do it anymore. Start developing the habit of using mostly the front brake. And since we're on the topic of brakes, habit number 2, always cover your front brakes. Now, you see, that's not something that you can do with your rear. If you're going to keep your right foot on your brakes, that's called riding your brakes, and it's not something that's advisable. But putting 2 fingers on your front brakes is not necessarily riding your brakes. You're actually preparing for an emergency in case it ever comes. Now let's expand on that a little bit. Since you have both fingers on the brakes, do you use both fingers to stop, or do you use just one finger? My advice to you is just to use one finger to stop your motorcycle. And the finger that you should be using to stop your motorcycle is your middle finger, because that is the longest finger that you have. I would say in 90% of the situations, you only need one finger braking, because you're not necessarily slowing down from 150 miles an hour. But there are times where you will need to use 2 finger braking, and during those situations, you have more braking force. But for the most part, myself included, I only need to use one finger, but I always keep both fingers just in case it's necessary. So that's lesson number 2, or habit number 2. Cover your front brakes at all times, because the milliseconds it takes for you to open up your hand and grab your brakes can cause an accident. And so to prevent that, always cover your front brakes. Makes it a lot more safer for you. and therefore less accidents. So I don't know which habit we're in, but I think this is habit number 3. So habit number 3, do not ride in the center of the lane, and do not ride very close to other cars. You want to ride at least 6 car lengths behind any other car. Number 1, if you're riding too close to another car, and hypothetically speaking, they're going over a mattress or an object or whatever it might be, because you're riding so close to them, you can't maneuver your bike fast enough, especially if you're carrying a lot of speed. So therefore, if I'm riding far away from another car, if he runs over an object and it's coming close to me, I can easily maneuver and move my bike out of the way. That's one of the reasons why you should never ride in the center of the lane. Now you see, most of the time, people are looking more on their left and right mirrors than they are looking in their rear view mirror. Not only is the car on your left side see you, but the car on the right side sees you as well if you're hanging out mostly on the left side. Now since this is 2 lanes, if I'm hanging out right here, the car in the front knows that I'm on his left side. Especially cars these days, they have lane detection and they have all sorts of things that'll tell the driver if somebody's on their left side or on their right side, etc. But if you're right at the center, you're not going to be able to activate those devices, and therefore the driver's not really going to see. Most drivers these days, they're on autopilot. They're on their phones, they're on their devices, and they mostly depend on technology to make them into better drivers. Gone are the days where these technologies didn't exist, that people had to depend on their brain power. But those days are gone, my friends. So now you have to be a defensive rider and ride mostly in either the right lane, either the right side of the lane or the left side. Now you saw on his mirror, the little thing turned red because I was on his left side. That told the driver that there's an object coming. And this is primarily the reason why you should be doing that. And he's going to look to see what that is, and he's going to see you coming. So that was lesson number 3. Stay either on your left side or on your right side, but never in the center of the lane. And now let's talk about the next habit, and that is to put less pressure on your arms. So what does this mean for you guys who are just starting to learn how to ride a bike? This basically means don't put a lot of pressure on your handlebars. You don't need to death grip it. Pretend it's a baby chicken. If you put more pressure on your handlebars, then that just makes your body more rigid, and therefore your motorcycle is not going to turn very well. Turning after 30-40 miles an hour is dependent mostly on your body weight, your upper body weight to be exact. Here's another example for you. Turning my motorcycle using my body. And these are all turns right here, my friends. Leaning a little bit towards the left, just to center myself. Now, going down to first gear. I'm doing 24 miles an hour, and I'm going to start using my rear brakes to slow myself down. Now getting back on the handlebars, because under 15 miles an hour is when your arms are most necessary when you're riding the bike, because it's at a lower speed and therefore less stable. Anytime you increase the speed, your motorcycle becomes more and more stable.
2 hours later.
So lesson number 5, or habit number 5, is never ever ever put your motorcycle in neutral gear when you're stopped at a red light. For a lot of different reasons, because it's not safe. At any moment, if you look at your rear view mirror and you notice a car coming really hot behind you, you can take off right away because you're already in gear. But if you're not in gear, it's going to make it very, very difficult, and you lose those precious seconds just to get out of the way before the guy behind you comes crashing directly behind you. I know neutral gear is going to make you comfortable at red lights, especially if you have a super sport like this. It takes your hands off the wheel and you can just sit upright and relax, but it's just not advisable, and I don't think it's a really great idea. But anyway, thanks so much for joining me on this episode, and if you guys have any other video ideas, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Peace.